Welcome to the King's Coronation, a multi-sensory exploration. A little bit of health and safety guidance before we get started. Please be aware of any choking hazards. Check the ingredients for any items you may be using for potential allergies. The interaction should be led by the student, who should be allowed to participate without expectation, never force stimuli, and stop the activity if the student shows signs they're not enjoying the session. So I've broken this poem down into different sections. It's a nice way to demonstrate that you don't have to tell the story in one sitting. There might be certain parts of the poem that you want to explore in more depth. King Charles was in his library flicking through a history book. It says here, I am Charles the Third. I hope I have better luck. The first King Charles lived years ago. He disobeyed the law, overtaxed the people, and then he caused a war. His cavaliers wore feathered hats on their curly hair, brightly coloured lace-trimmed clothes, and fancy footwear. They battled with the Roundheads, who had closely cropped hair. Wearing leather coats, they fought with swords and gave them quite a scare. The Roundheads won the war, and Charles was filled with dread. Flags fluttered and drums beat as they chopped off his head. I'm going to run through some activities, some ideas for sourcing your story props. There are a lot of different settings using the resource. So we've got mainstream early years settings all the way up to post-16 students, PMLD classes. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of something there for everybody. So let's have a look at the history book. You may want to use this as an opportunity to promote literacy skills. Can the student hold the book the correct way up? Can the student flick through the pages of the book independently? Can the student communicate a request for help? You could extend learning and present a selection of books of different genres. Can the student correctly identify the history book from a selection of books? Extend learning, visit your library in your school or setting, visit your local library and have a look at the history section. You could simplify the activities. You could use one of these folders and place 3 pictures, one of King Charles the First, Second and Third in each sleeve of the file. Then the students have only got 3 pages to turn independently. Extend learning, present 3 pictures, see if the student can identify King Charles III. Having a look at taxes and the law, and I thought scales represented the law and a great opportunity to explore weighing coins on scales. Your students might want to work on their fine motor skills or posting skills. Can the student count the coins? And a little tip is it's often easier for the student to count the sound the coin makes as it hits the bottom of the money box or tin rather than the physical coin itself. You may wish to promote more fine motor skills with a motivating item such as a chocolate coin. Can the student use their fine motor skills to peel the foil from the coins? Promote self-awareness. Can they communicate a request for help if required? And I've put down here some rice paper money. This is a nice little quirky prop to use. The Cavaliers, so this is all about engaging the senses with those wonderful feathers, feather boas, the lace materials that the Cavaliers wore on their outfits. So whether you're exploring the feathers, so that's the shaft of the feather, or those little fine downy feathers at the base of the shaft that rustle around when you blow them, or maybe you're passing a feather boa around your class of students. You could explore lace material, fabric or net curtain, and providing all these different materials and fabrics is a wonderful opportunity for our learners to explore and express their likes, dislikes and sensory preferences. If you've got some D&T activities, you might want to make some cavalier feathered hats, engage fine motor skills and independence, explore the buckles and fastenings on different shoes and belts, and a little tip for some of our younger students who little hands, that baby shoes are smaller and easier to handle. Let's look at the Roundheads. So the Roundheads had this closely cropped hair and they wore lots of leather clothes. And I thought that velvet and suede fabric and material represents the feel of that closely shaven hair. And you can recreate the sound and sensation of the hair clippers by running a battery massager around the head. with the students. Explore some leather items, leather belts and gloves, maybe leather trousers and jackets. More D&T activities, you could make swords and shields. For any of your students that engage in role play, they could dress up as cavaliers and roundheads and reenact a battle. You could extend learning. So why not place a selection of clothing? So you could have all the lace and feathered clothes of the Cavaliers and all the leather that the Roundheads use, or the leather clothing, and see if the student can create the correct outfit by selecting the clothing items that a Roundhead would wear or that a Cavalier would wear. Thinking about the execution now. So Charles I was executed on a windy day. Now you might want to promote some listening skills and some cause and effect. You could recreate the sounds of battle on some single switch communication devices, so sword fight, horses hooves, or battle cry. See if the students can independently work these SSCDs if they know which one is the horse or which one is the sword fight. And then looking at the drums beating on the execution day, engage the senses. There's lots of different types of drums that you can use. You could play a beat on the drum. Can the student play a beat on the drum using their fingers, their palm, their elbows? And explore using different drumsticks, beaters and bushes, or items found around the classroom. What sound does a drum make if you hit it with a wooden spoon? Have a look at blocks and beaters, and I like these double tone blocks as well that make different sounds. Can the student copy a series of beats? Can the student create beats and you copy their beats? There were no kings or queens when Oliver Cromwell ruled the land. He was so strict that having fun and Christmas Day were banned. So I thought a little nod to this would be to have some items related to Christmas. You could have your baubles, some foliage, you could have some little jingly bells or jingle shaker, some tinsel, and you could place those in a shoebox or a cardboard box and put the lid on there just to signify that these items were banned. Oliver Cromwell made people wear black clothes, so students could explore black clothing, extend the activity, provide a mixed pile of clothes, coloured clothes and black clothes, see if the students can correctly find an outfit that Oliver Cromwell would have approved of. The people were bored, so declared Charles II their new king, known as the Merry Monarch, who reinstated everything. Life was fun with King Charles, happy and less grim. He loved parties, gambling and dogs, and named one after him. He let people enjoy horse racing, theatre and games, helped in the Great Fire of London by dousing the flames. So having a look at some gambling items, maybe you're going to get the poker chips out, some lovely opportunities for colour sorting, for counting, and just a nice little sensory sound that they make if you pop them in a bag and give them a shake. You could have a look at exploring dice, maybe get a giant dice. Can the students throw it on the floor, play a game, who can get the highest number? Or maybe your students want to have a look at the playing cards, whether you're using this as an art activity or again putting the cards into different suits or matching the numbers. He let people enjoy horse racing, theatre and games. Though you're horse racing, this could be a lovely sensory activity, exploring a piece of turf, so get a clod of soil and all the grass for the students to explore. Or you could recreate the sound of a horse race, so use your cups, bang them together, try different speeds. Can the students copy a trot to a canter or a gallop? You might want to have a nod to the Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and have a little sensory bag, put some dog-themed items in there for the students to explore. The Great Fire of London, so Charles I helped put the flames out in the Great Fire of London, and I thought we could do this by using a water spray bottle and getting a big piece of tissue paper. You could have yellow, red, orange to represent the flames, and as the student uses the water spray to douse the flames onto the tissue paper, when it gets damp it's going to flop down just as if the fire was being put out. Alternatively, you might want to put a switch on a fan and tie some ribbons, and when the fan switch is pressed and activated the fan, then the ribbons will look like flames dancing as the blades go around. But do be careful with health and safety with that one. You could smell fire, so this could be smoky Chinese lapsang souchong tea, some barbecue rubs, smoked paprika. They've all got that smoky smell to them. You could blow a windmill. I think these orange windmills are really fun to make, and they also remind me of flames dancing when they go round. Charles slammed the book shut. So I'm the new king of the nation. My coronation will be a big celebration. I'll need to polish the gold on my jewel-studded crown, shake the thick dust off my long velvet gown, find the urn of anointing oil made from things sweet and sour, collect my jewels and orb from where they're kept in the tower. So thinking about celebration, most royal celebrations take form of a bugler. Can the students explore some musical instruments? You might want to think about brass and woodwind instruments, so toy trumpets or whistles, and see if you can watch a footage of a bugler on your interactive whiteboard. Can the students join in and play along? For a celebration, you might want to mark this with a confetti bomb or a party popper, building anticipation skills as you say, ready, steady, wait for that response from the student, and then release the item. If any of your students are sound sensitive, then you might want to throw some streamers or throw some confetti. So polishing the gold on the jewel-studded crown, you might want to have an arts and craft activity. And I love this gold mirror card. So you could offer the student a choice of polishing cloths, whether they see if they prefer a soft duster or whether they would like to use a chamois leather. Can they polish the gold to make it shine on the base of the crown? And for some of your students that are working on their grasp, I think these little mitts are absolutely fantastic. They just slip over the hand, and you can help your student to do this activity. Extend learning, why not repurpose old clothes and rags to make your own cleaning cloth? So there's a little bit about recycling. And promote fine motor skills and creative arts. So the students could decorate their crowns using acrylic gems. They could either use a glue stick or you get these ready glued sticky back gems, and model the crowns. So why not put a little red carpet out, or you could have a little red carpet towel to stand on. Who has got the most colourful crown? Whose is the most decorated, the tallest crown, and so on. Shake the thick dust off my long velvet gown. So if you have a little look for some velvet material, charity shops are fantastic. They've always got loads of velvet curtains and bedspreads. I thought it might be an idea to represent the dust on this velvet gown by using flour. So you could sprinkle some flour onto the gown, and just as you would with a parachute activity, have your students hold and shake this velvet material and watch all the flour dance and fall off. The students could use a clothes brush or a lint roller to remove the dust. And just a little tip as well, your local curtain upholstery shop, they often give away these offcuts or end of line swatches. You can sometimes they'll just charge you 50p or £1. If they do give them to you, you can always give them a mention in your school newsletter just to say thank you. I think everybody likes a little bit of free advertising. I love these because you can get all different materials, textures and colours, and it gives your students a chance to explore them and also to choose what their favourite items are. Or you might want to say, can you show me which one is the colour purple? So the anointing oil. Now, the ingredients that are in King Charles's anointing oil are olive oil, sesame, cinnamon, orange oil, rose jasmine, neroli, and myrrh oil. So basing it on these ingredients, I thought you could have a little bit of a different play and engage the students with smelling, touching, and where appropriate, tasting some of these ingredients. So you could use olive oil or you could use real olives, but be careful of the stones inside. You could use sesame oil, sesame seeds. Cinnamon could take the form of ground cinnamon sticks, which are a lovely sensory item. I like using those in artwork. You can roll them in paint and do lots of mark making. Your students might want to try these curiously cinnamon cereal bites, so maybe they've never tried those before, so this could be about exploring new tastes. Your orange, the students might want to use a grater, so promoting fine motor skills to grate some of the rind off the orange, or a squeezer and squeeze the juice. Rose petals could be used. could use the scissors and cut those up. You can rub them in your hands, lovely tactile, and they're also edible as well. Just make sure that they're disease-free and washed and that the student has no allergies. And then, of course, you've got your essential oils. So neroli, jasmine, rose, myrrh. See if the students have got any preferences, or maybe they're going to make a rejection and just say, oh, I don't like the smell of jasmine, but I like the smell of neroli. I've never smelled that before. A little mention about these containers as well. They're magnetic spice tins. They have a magnet on the base, so lovely for storing. Maybe you've got a cupboard in your classroom, you could put a magnetic strip on and they can be popped on there or on your fridge. So they've got a see-through cover so you can see what's inside them. I love the adjustable here. This is adjustable, so you can have a pourer, you can have a sprinkler. For some of your students that may be smell sensitive, because some smells can be very overpowering for some of our students, you could put one drop of the oil or say one rose petal, put some cotton, maybe on a cotton wool ball, put it inside the container, and your student could just have control over how much smell they get out of there. So you could make anointing oil, and I thought this is a lovely activity if you've got a science lesson. So you could provide fine motor tools, you could provide the ingredients. I think a little nice tip is to use tinker trays to put your ingredients out. So these snack trays are really cheap. Also, you can use dinner trays and they're just lovely for organizing. You could use fine motor tools, so your students could select some different ingredients and grind them together with pestle and mortar. Alternatively, a rolling pin will do the same thing if you put some cling film over the top, or maybe a paper towel. It'll stop the items from going everywhere. The students could use grippers, they could use scissors if you're going to be using herbs or rose petals to cut those. We've got items to promote scientific investigation, so why not take a closer look at your ingredients by looking through a magnifying glass. You could measure using spoons or beakers, or these little tubes here are great. You could use funnels, pipettes, and also don't forget to wear goggles. So lovely activity for making oils. And just a couple of last little tips for you with making oils. I love using herbal teas. You can mix them, you can blend them. You can buy a pack of potpourri, and there's so many different flavors and scents of these that you can buy really cheap in places like B&M, Quality Save, your cheap shops. Great for doing artwork, fantastic for doing potions. The students can cut bits off, they can handle them, smell them. And if you want to make a potion, but you want a less mess option, then why not make your potions directly into water bottles? Now, depending on how many students in your class, you might want to get a big 5-litre water bottle, and your students can all contribute towards the potion by posting items through the open neck of the bottle. Or if you're working on a one-to-one basis, each student could have their own little bottle that's easy to hold, and they could post their items in there. You could put sparkling waters in there, you could put olive oil, vegetable oil, food colouring, all your different items. And just think about your bottles as well. They don't have to be these round bottles. If you think about a salad cream plastic bottle or a ketchup bottle, they're quite easy to handle because they're flattened off. So think about using different types of bottles as well for your students. So we're on to collecting the jewels and orb from where they're kept in the tower. A Christmas bauble decorated with gems and glitter makes a fantastic orb. If you've got a little loop at the end, you could also put some string on there so the students can hold on to that easily. You could explore dress jewellery, rings and bracelets. If you want a cheap option, then maybe use some washers and see if the students can place the items on independently or communicate a request for help if required. Again, it's another opportunity for counting and colour sorting. I love these Indian bangles. You can buy these on eBay, Amazon. They're really, really cheap. They come in so many different colours, designs, ones with sparkles, ones with jewels, plain ones. You can use them in lots of different storytelling sessions. I get mine from Mush Home. I think you pay about £1 and you get 20 in a bundle. So you will use these quite often, especially in the maths lessons as well. And for the Tower of London, it'd be a nice idea to put some Lego Duplo, some Uniflux snack cubes into a little bag or box. Invite your student to each take one and see if you can build a tower as a class. I'll have a service at the Abbey and invite the heads of state and members of my family, Anne, William and Kate. On the Friday, I'll have a procession and wave from my balcony. On Saturday, a light show, concert, street party. So looking at the Abbey, I think you could dim the lights in the classroom, listen to some church music, maybe explore listening to and playing bells. You could have a look at the heads of state. So I think to explore traditional hats and national dress is a nice little way of representing the heads of state. See if the students can dress in the items independently or if they can ask for help if required. Provide a mirror so that they can explore and see their new looks. Think about henna art as well. You could use face paint, you could use chalks. If you've got any students that don't like having marks on their skin, then you could use different thicknesses of paintbrushes and just paint water on there so they can feel the sensation of the patterns being drawn on there without the marks. Think about saris and exploring and making garlands. The light show and street party, so opportunity to explore light toys and torches and different firework apps on your iPads or interactive whiteboards. PSHE hold a coronation lunch party. Now, this is something you might want to do as a class. You might want to do as a couple of classes joining together or a department or a whole school. It just depends on your setting, how much time you've got and so on. So on a smaller scale, it could be you decide to have a King's Coronation snack time one afternoon. So maybe your students could make the bunting and table mats and decorations for that. Maybe they want to invite a friend from another class. If you're going to upscale this, maybe you could get your post-16 department involved. So these are wonderful life skills and independence opportunities for them. Can the students decide on a menu? Can they purchase the items and then on the day prepare the sandwiches and snacks? Again, you can link into hygiene, so wearing hairnets, washing the hands, wearing aprons. You could see if they can make a guest list and then also decide on a time, a date, a venue, have a look at the weather. You're going to have it indoors, you're going to have it outdoors. You're going to have a contingency plan if you're outdoors, then it starts raining and so on. An alternative activity is to use this with your students as an opportunity to explore and taste new foods. So whether it's different types of bread, sandwich fillers, dips or side dishes, wonderful opportunity for students again to explore and express their own personal likes, dislikes, sensory preferences, to make rejections and to make choices. So what will the future bring with me as king? The anthem will be God Save the King when you sing. My face will be on stamps, coins and notes. Changes in laws and bills will need my vote. I'll visit towns and cities and say hello. And in my spare time, I'll paint and play my cello. So let's think about the national anthem. The national anthem starts with a drum roll. Can your student recreate drum roll? Explore musical instruments and think about some of the different musical instruments that you can get as well that are quite fun. Kazoos, ocarinas, harmonicas. I've put this toy trumpet on there as well. Can the students play along to the recording of the national anthem? Can they sing and or sign the national anthem? Or maybe they're going to learn a few signs that are appropriate for the coronation. So celebration, king, crown, so on. I like these little flutes here, these water flutes that I found when I was researching this. You can put different amounts of water and it will change the sound on your flutes. Let's have a look at stamps. Maybe you're going to have a D&T lesson. Can your students design a stamp with the King's portrait on? You could even mix flour and water to make your own glue. A nice enrichment activity is to write to King Charles III. You could draw him a picture, send him a card. You could tell him how you've been celebrating the coronation in your setting. The address is there for you. And another activity is good for travel training and independence. So you could visit your local post office, purchase a stamp and post your letter. On the way, can the student recognise the post office sign on the high street? Can they find the post box? You could even read the times, find out when the next time the delivery is going to be collected. Going to look at hello and the cello. So King Charles is going to spend a lot of time going and meeting people. The cello is his favourite musical instrument. Your students could practice shaking hands and saying hello to one another. You could also use a big map for some of your students as well as a communicative aid. You might want to have a creative arts session. Why not make a sensory Union Jack using lots of different fabrics and materials? You could even use paint and scent them. So for example, red, white and blue paint. Your red paint could be crushed strawberries. Your white paint could have some coconut oil put in it to thicken it up and make it smell nice. The blue point paint could have blueberry essence, or you could paint using blueberries. And why not play cello music in the background whilst creating your art and craft activities? So wrapping up for the end of the story, and for me the best thing about being the new king is the adventure and excitement it will bring. Just like the Queen, my mamma, I'll have 2 birthdays, so clap and cheer and say 3 hip hip hoorays. So depending on your class and your students, whether you're going to go down the route that like everything has its time in life on a life cycle, that the Queen lived and enjoyed her life and now she's passed away. You could remember the Queen by exploring the Queen's handbag. For anybody that's familiar with the Queen's Jubilee multisensory story that I did, you'll remember there was a Queen's handbag and it had all these wonderful items that the Queen carried around with her, including a dog biscuit. She had her reading glasses in there, a makeup bag, a comb, and so on. So see if your students can recall any of the items the Queen carried in a handbag, or think what the items were used for. If you don't want to go down this avenue, then you could just look at a birthday generally. You could release party poppers, you could inflate balloons, you could use this as an opportunity for teamwork. So can students work in pairs, inflating a balloon? They could even play with the balloon, button it to and fro. Promote anticipation skills and cause and effect. I just love these LED birthday candles that are on a switch. They're quite fun to use. And I'm sure lots of you use those little LED battery operated candles, tea light ones. You could give the cue ready, steady, blow, and then as the student blows the candle out, just flick the switch from on to off and it will make it look like the student has blown out the candle. So have a look at the skills promoted during this multi-story session. So we've created a bond between the storyteller and the story explorer, connected to the topic of the British culture, values, history with the Kings of England. We've engaged the senses. We've promoted communication skills. So think about all that eye contact, the listening, the shared attention and language development. Your students will have explored and expressed their likes, dislikes, and sensory preferences, made choices, made rejections, promoted self-awareness. So whether your students have asked for help or regaining more if they liked an activity and wanted it repeated, or whether they decided stop or no to make a rejection. Promoted physical development, so all these fine motor skills, hand-eye coordination, manipulation and control of the story props. Maybe you've promoted independence and life skills. Maybe your students took part in organising the party. Engaged in scientific investigation. Did you make anointing oil? D&T crafts, so we were talking about making crowns and swords and shields and different artworks. Mathematical concepts, so we had weights and measures and we had some coins and counting in there as well. Explored musical instruments, promoted social skills, so we were shaking hands and saying hello to people, and personal, social, emotional development. So during this session, your students will have developed self-confidence and well-being and maybe tried out some new ideas and skills. And don't forget that the stories form a base on which to scaffold learning. So if your students have got any personal goals or targets that they're working on, you can incorporate these into the session. So for example, one of your students' targets might be to use a help symbol to ask for help, and you can incorporate that nicely. Now, there's a resource called the Queen's Jubilee. It contains 70 royal family Buckingham Palace themed activities in there. There are so many different ones that can be applied to the coronation. So I've done a little list here. So for example, you could look at the crown jewels, beacons, the Union Jack, expressive arts and drama. There's lots on independence and life skills. There's even PSHE games, D&T and so on. So have a little look on that. That's free in the subscribers library, the members library for the subscribers. And you'll also find it in the story library. It's just a simple click and you can download that. So I'm going to move on to some extension activities. So because quite a lot was covered with the Queen's Jubilee, and that was only last year, try to think of some different ideas. And I came up with five different areas really. There are some more we're going to have a little look at. I thought about the King's suitcase, King Charles the arborist, because he's very passionate about trees and nature. King Charles the magician, because he was a member of the Magic Circle. King Charles the thespian, he's a huge Shakespeare fan and he's also played the role of Macbeth himself in his uni days. And finally, King Charles the author. So I'm just going to unshare the screen and take us on to have a look at this resource. Okay, so we've got the King's Coronation. Now I'm just going to scroll down here. You've got your resource here. So table of contents, or your list of the props. And you don't have to use all the props. There's lots listed there, so you can take your pick. You've got the full poem there. Then the story is divided into story, the prop, and the sensory experience. So lots of advice there and ideas on how you can present different areas of the story. And I've put the PowerPoint there as well. So I'm just going to flick down to the activities. Okay, we're almost there. And share a few ideas. So that was the Queen's sensory handbag. So that was all the wacky things that the Queen kept in her handbag. We've got the King's suitcase. So King Charles III likes his comforts when he travels away from home, and he has some very strange requests with his butler. And here are some of the items you could recreate and pack the King's suitcase activity. You could even throw red herrings in there. You could provide your students with a list and see if they can find the items that he wouldn't take with him in his suitcase. Now, King Charles wrote a children's book called The Old Man of Lochnagar. It's been adapted into a film, musical and ballet, and it's a charming little story of an old man that lives in a cave in the cliffs under a mountain overlooking Balmoral Estate. And I've put some nice story prop ideas of how we can convert this story into a multi-sensory story. He meets some fantastic characters on the way. Another activity is the King's table. So you might want to prepare and taste King Charles's favourite meal, which is risotto, mushroom risotto with plums for dessert. And then I thought about what we could do with a plum stone. So how to plant a plum tree from a plum stone. It might be nice to have a plum tree in your school setting to mark the coronation. King Charles the arborist. King Charles likes to talk to plants and trees, and when he's planted a tree, he'll often shake a branch to wish it well. So here's a lovely little activity. If you're going to take your students to run their fingers over the groove in the bark, listen to the trees rustle, a little poem to go with it there, and some advice and ideas on planting trees from seed. You can also plant a pine cone. That's a nice activity too. King Charles the archaeologist. So this was one of his studies at university along with history. I thought about a King Charles the First, Second and Third archaeological dig. Lots of ideas there for fine motor skills, items that you can put along with this activity. And so, for example, King Charles I, you might want to add some of those cavalier clothes that they put in there. King Charles II could be the second, could be the dice, the poker chips, Christmas items, and so on. King Charles III could be some of his favourite things in there. See if the students can identify which king these items belong to. We talked about the sensory Union Jack. Here's another one using dyed rice. And then King Charles the Magician. So whether you're going to do a magician's sensory bag, there's some items listed there. Whether you're going to be exploring magic tricks, balloon modelling, or even watching a magic show on your interactive whiteboard. I thought a nice idea would be look at some optical illusions with your students. So we've got this rabbit duck illusion, which is quite interesting. We've got the my wife and the mother-in-law. So it's whether you see a young lady looking outwards or you see the old lady with her nose there, her shawl on her head. You could recreate some of these activities. So Reversible Head with a Basket of Fruit was painted in 1590, and you can recreate this. So your basket could be some straw, and then your fruits could either be cut out pictures of fruit that your students could either colour those fruits themselves, they can place them, or you might want to slice an apple in half and then use it to print. So you would put the apple prints there, you would put the pear print there, and so on. And if your students turn their pictures upside down, can they see a face? And then we've got the Ebbinghaus illusion. So depending where the circles are placed around the red circle, makes it look like that one's bigger, whereas they're the same size. And you can recreate this using bingo dabbers, marker pens, stickers, printing stamps. King Charles the Thespian, I took a line from Macbeth and decided, well, some ideas here of how we can put a sensory element to that as well. So that is the end of my ideas. So thank you so much for taking the time to join me. If you wanted to purchase the resource and you're not yet a member of the library, then you can find it on the Etsy shop. So it's £3.98. It's got all of the different resources that we've just looked at. If you're not a subscriber, if you wish to subscribe to the members library, you will gain unlimited access to all the resources and to lots of free training workshops held throughout the year. It's £95 a year. That's a site school license, so you can have multiple users on there. Some of my settings choose to have one login per classroom. Other settings prefer to have one per teacher, HLTA, SL, and so on. So if that's something you're interested in, get in touch. As always, thank you for your time. If you have any questions or queries, I'm always happy to talk all things multisensory. So please do get in touch.